July is when we really get going for a new deer season. Watching the fields for bachelor groups, hoping to put our eyes on a shooter for the new season to come. This is whitetailaction.com, the boys of summer. There was 20-some bucks in this bachelor group. They were coming out to this hayfield every night, so I popped up one of my ground blinds and sat out there at the video camera. The bucks were just pouring out of the woods. I've never seen so many in one group. There was this nice 9-pointer here and this 8-pointer in the background. We found sheds off of both of those bucks, so they're still around. Hopefully we'll come across them this fall. We drove by this buck, just thinking that it was a small one. And when he turned his head, when I first drove by, I seen all kinds of points. So I had to turn the car around. We came back, and this buck was probably just a 2-year-old deer, but he had points going all over. And I looked for quite a while back in those fields for this buck to see what he turned into, and I never seen him again. So I don't know what happened with this buck, but you could see the potential of this deer. And this footage is absolutely amazing. He was right next to the road. Some cool stuff here. This buck was a stud. He had some beams that just curled right back in, and all of his points had some cool curls to him. His brow tines had some weird curls to him and everything. And I videoed this buck quite a few times throughout the summer, and he was always in a field that was right next to the road. And after a while of a few times out there videoing, people started showing up every night watching him. And then he finally stopped coming out to that field. But I got some really just beautiful footage of him up close. I don't know what happened to this deer, if he's still around or not. It's really not one of the spots that we hunt too much, but he was a great buck and gave me some really good footage to show you guys. This was a great buck. It was a giant 8-pointer, and he just stood there and stared at us forever. I had my daughter with me, and she was starting to think that it was a fake deer. But I bet you he stood there for a couple minutes before he even flickered, because I was starting to think that it was a fake deer too. But he finally turned his head, and we realized it was just a giant 8-pointer. Never seen this buck again, but got some pretty good footage of it. As you see, I take my kids with me pretty much every time we go. They just love doing it. We've been taking them out since they were little babies. That was the way that we got them to sleep when they were in a bad mood and stuff. So take your kids out and let them look for deer too. They'll love it. This was just a giant buck.
He's just gonna stand there and stare at us. Oh, he's a huge 8-pointer. That is an enormous 8-pointer. Still there. He's by that tree now.
Dude, what if you found his horns?
That'd be cool.
Well, I just got out here. This is a spot that I think I spotted a buck we call the V-buck last night. So I'm sitting out in this alfalfa field, and I just had a nice 10-pointer come out already. It's only about 6:45. It's really hot. Sitting behind this downed tree that fell, and a deer coming past me, and don't even know I'm here. So I'm not 100% sure if this is a V-buck, but this is always the field that I thought he'd be in. It's the buck with the big V, split brow tines. Got all the sheds to him. Never been looking for him for the last three years and never been able to spot him, get trail cam pictures or any video of him. But that footage I got last night, the storm come through and it was really dark and he was a long ways away, so I couldn't tell for sure, but it looked a lot like him. Hopefully I don't bust any of these deer because I'm pretty close to him. He was also with about a 9-pointer with about a 20-inch spread, so try to get some footage here.
As this buck got closer, I realized it wasn't the V-buck. It was the buck that I did video the night before, though, from the highway. This was a deer that we also knew about. It was the buck I called a king buck. My brother-in-law found his match set, scored 160, and I found a single to him from the year before that match set. So we had a little bit of history with him. And I sat in his field a couple nights, and he came out both nights. And unfortunately, it wasn't the V-buck, but I think this deer ended up getting shot last year, so he's not around no more. But giant buck, and this was a good night to sit. As the evening went on, the fog started to settle and got thicker and thicker. I was just getting amazing footage of these bucks. They fed out in front of me for a while, and then they ended up walking right past me in about 20 or 30 yards. Just amazing stuff. But we're going to end with this last clip here, and we're going to be back next month at whitetailaction.com for the Boys of Summer Part 2. Thanks for watching.